Beneath a sprawling glass dome, the Transvaal Water Park promises families and thrill seekers an aquatic paradise. But without warning, the laughter of children and the splashes of swimmers turned to chilling screams as the sky above them came crashing down. How did this ordinary Saturday outing take such a terrifying turn? Why could a newly built structure fail so catastrophically? And who was responsible for the lives lost in the disaster? Transvaal Park in Moscow's southern Yasenevo district was a massive 217,000 square foot behemoth of a building. Its glass-paneled dome-shaped roof was an architectural feat and symbolized the growth of entrepreneurship in post-Soviet Russia. The park had an African theme, featuring numerous spacious heated pools, including a thrilling wave pool and a winding river, perfect for tubing. It housed a 12-lane bowling alley, saunas, a gym, a beauty salon, restaurants, and bars. The attraction was temperature-controlled and could easily accommodate up to 2,000 visitors at a time. During the harsh Russian winters, park-goers could tan in solariums, while the outside temperatures could drop to 14 degrees Fahrenheit. But the complex would suffer a devastating blow not even 2 years after opening its doors. On Saturday, the 14th of February 2004, with temperatures at just 0 degrees Fahrenheit, more than 1,300 tickets were sold as locals sought refuge from the winter climate. It wasn't a cheap activity either, with ticket prices costing in the region of 940 rubles, approximately $33 at the time. It was a hive of activity with people swimming, a kiddie's birthday party being celebrated at the pool, and a Valentine's Day dance for teenagers. But as visitors enjoyed the balmy indoor complex, a loud crack reverberated throughout, followed by a few moments of deathly silence. The collapse was like a thunderous avalanche, with the main center support beam giving way first. Composed primarily of glass and concrete, the collapse unleashed a deadly downpour of razor-sharp shards and massive concrete chunks on around 350 bathers below. The collapse was over in just 30 to 40 seconds. Panic crowds dressed in swimwear started running outside for safety, where the frosty temperature was well below 5 degrees Fahrenheit. All that remained of the once grand roof was a gaping chasm about the size of a football field. Over 53,000 square feet of the overhead structure had collapsed, burying a playground, a kiddie swimming pool, and water slides. Hundreds had narrowly escaped death by running out into the icy temperatures, but many were not so lucky. Frantic survivors were desperately trying to dig their way out of the rubble, while others were anxiously calling out to loved ones, seen only seconds before the collapse. Within minutes, emergency services mobilized in force. Over 800 first responders rushed bloody people clad in bikinis and swimming trunks on stretchers to ambulances. Medics were contending not only with injuries incurred during the collapse, but also with incidents of exposure-related symptoms. Preventing frostbite among the survivors amid the plunging temperatures became critical. 2 hours after the roof caved in, the complex was evacuated, and all those injured were taken to nearby hospitals. But the search for trapped people remained ongoing. With temperatures outside at around 5 degrees Fahrenheit, rescuers used heat guns and generators to pump warm air into the building to increase the chances of survival for those trapped under the rubble. K-9 units were brought in to aid in the search for survivors. Emergency personnel searched through the night, periodically calling for silence to listen for signs of life. But by the early hours of Sunday morning, none were heard, and the search for survivors was called off later that day. The last person rescued from the rubble alive was at 3 a.m. 106 people were recovered from the rubble alive, while more than 140 people were injured. Dozens of bodies had been recovered, but the true extent of the death toll would only emerge later. But what could have led to the catastrophic failure of a complex that was barely 2 years old? Before we get to the bottom of what went wrong, let's talk about a different kind of safety, the one today's sponsor Aura provides. Like many, I Googled myself, only to find my personal information on public display. your full name, email, home address, health records, and relatives. It's all out there being sold to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you. That's why I've been using Aura. They show me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submit opt-out requests for me. This cuts down on spam and also protects me from hackers who could use my info trying to access my social media or bank accounts. I also get features like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more without having to download different apps, all at one affordable price. A wise man said, not having Aura is like locking the front door and leaving the back door wide open. I value my privacy, and I value yours. You can go to aura.com/darkrecords to start your 2-week free trial. Also, link below in the description. Thank you for watching. Early reports indicated that the roof collapse was a result of an explosion. The city had been on edge since a deadly subway blast just days before the tragedy. The acclaimed architect of the complex, Nodar Cancelli, believed the roof caved in due to outside influence, like a bombing, instead of design flaws. The architect said he had seen surveillance footage showing a cloud of dust several feet in length erupting from the side of the column before the roof collapsed. Those claims would, however, not bode well for the aquatic park's new owners, Inteco. It was one of Moscow's largest construction firms, owned by Yelena Baturina, the billionaire wife of the city's mayor. The entertainment complex was insured against all accidents, but the policy did not cover an act of terrorism. In any event, officials quickly distanced themselves from such claims, saying there was no evidence of a bomb blast. Subsequent investigations from experts would also later find no traces of explosives in the ruins of the building. Russian authorities therefore focused on possible technical flaws in the design of the building. The mammoth task of finding out what caused the collapse fell to 3 state entities, who jumped into action on the day of the incident, opening a criminal investigation. The authorities were contemplating charges of negligent manslaughter, which, if proven, could lead to a maximum prison sentence of 5 years. Several architectural experts, meanwhile, condemned the Moscow mayor, who commissioned the building, for the disaster. Mayor Luzhkov reportedly announced a plan in 2002 to build water parks throughout Moscow, although there were no safety controls to construct these projects. Many in the engineering fraternity blamed a culture of corruption prevalent in all local construction sites at the time. The economic boom of the period had reportedly led to several hastily constructed sites that were structurally unsound. Over the next 20 months, more than 200 specialized tests were conducted, including forensic, explosives, and metallurgical tests to single out the cause. The complex was designed by a Russian firm, Kiselev & Partners, with Nodar Cancelli as the chief designer, while a Turkish company, Koçak, built it. The unique water park, with its eye-catching dome, was initially designed using steel or aluminum columns, but it was ultimately constructed with a reinforced concrete dome, which was much cheaper than a metal one. Both builders had impeccable reputations before the collapse. They were responsible for some of the most eye-catching buildings in Russia, including President Putin's residence in the Kremlin. Obtaining approval to construct the massive Transvaal Water Park required permission from many government departments. Industry experts said that such a colossal undertaking would have needed signing off from at least 120 officials at all local levels. But despite this multi-layered review process, the 5-story park was built in just 18 months. The rapid construction of such a sizable facility in less than 2 years prompted concerns about whether due diligence was done. Investigators explored multiple theories regarding the collapse. This included snow accumulation, temperature differences between indoor and outdoor areas, and water seepage into the concrete supports. The snow theory was the first to be put to bed, as Aqua Park employees indicated they cleared snow on the domed roof daily. Water park management defended the construction quality despite reports of poor workmanship. According to a spokesperson for the company, they had received documents guaranteeing the building's integrity for 100 years, obtained a year before the incident. Furthermore, the companies involved in building the complex said that Transvaal Park's glass and concrete dome and its concrete supports were guaranteed to operate reliably for 10 years before needing any repairs. However, According to the reports, this was simply not the case. Employees at Transvaal Park reported observing numerous cracks in the load-bearing structures, suggesting an alternate theory that the collapse could be attributed to operational failures. According to Russian media, the park's owners had received recommendations to cut the operating costs of the expensive complex to start making a profit. Cancelli reportedly worked on Transvaal Park's unique dome structure purely out of scientific interest, receiving just $20,000 for the project. However, problems emerged as calculations for the engineering of the domed complex could not be independently verified because there was no similar project to compare it to. Designers originally planned to support the domed roof with aluminum structures. However, these were replaced with much cheaper reinforced concrete supports during construction. According to the investigation report, the decision to make this change was made by Cancelli's firm. It's believed the use of cheaper concrete in place of the intended aluminum likely compromised the roof's structural integrity and contributed to its collapse. After an extensive 20-month investigation, Cancelli and Anatoly Voronin, head of the state agency that signed off on the building plans, were found to be responsible for the tragedy. Cancelli consistently denied any guilt, but the report found that the architect had selected the wrong type of concrete. Cancelli reportedly opted for unstressed or regular concrete instead of stronger reinforced concrete. This was likely done to avoid redesigning the entire structure, but it left the roof vulnerable to high stresses. Additionally, the domed roof design became unstable when winds blew. Its shape caused excess movement that regular concrete could not withstand. By failing to use reinforced concrete and not accounting for the additional stress from the roof's shape, Cancelli dangerously compromised the integrity of the critical load-bearing structure. Structural analysis also showed the roof was overloaded, carrying 29% more weight than its design limits. After releasing their conclusive findings, Moscow prosecutors signed an indictment in December 2005, ready to take the criminal case in Cancelli to court. Cancelli, who was 68 years old at the time, had his lawyers petition prosecutors to conclude the Transvaal Park's criminal probe, citing his client's advanced age as the reason. In May 2006, prosecutors agreed to close their investigation into Cancelli under a parliamentary amnesty. The case against Voronin, who signed off the building plans, was ultimately dismissed due to a lack of substantive evidence. The news came as a blow to the friends and family of the 28 people, including 8 children who died in the tragedy. Only 14 civil suits were subsequently filed by victims seeking compensation. Sadly, less than half of them would receive any settlements. In the aftermath of the Transvaal Park tragedy, justice remained elusive for those who lost their lives. Despite findings pointing to design flaws and negligence, the architect responsible continued to shape Moscow's skyline. His legacy was forever entwined with controversy until his passing in 2015. Today, an even bigger complex, Morion Water Park, now stands on the site where 28 people lost their lives due to negligence and corruption. Watch this episode next if you found this video interesting. Please add a like and leave a comment if you want to support the channel.